Minutes starts now.
He admits we don't have all the answers about what happened in Niger. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
We owe the American people an explanation of what their men and women were doing at this particular time.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says it was ISIS-linked militants who attacked a group of American troops and forces from Niger. General Joe Dunford says they didn't call for help until an hour later.
I don't know that they thought they needed support prior to that time. I don't know how this attack unfolded. I don't know what their initial assessment was of what they were confronted with.
A drone went up minutes later. French air support arrived about an hour later. 4 U.S. soldiers were killed. The body of one wasn't found until 2 days after. President Trump will go to the Senate today to have lunch with Republicans and talk about tax reform, which he says will bring massive tax cuts. Critical Democrats claim most of them will go to the wealthy.
The Trump administration is in close contact with Capitol Hill about what's going to be in this piece of legislation. But no one will tell you definitively that there's anything that's in or out of this bill.
Fox's Chad Pergram. While the president awaits funding for his Mexican border wall, 8 prototypes are being built in San Diego. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal got a look at them and joins us live.
Dave, the 3 things they'll be testing for next month, now that these prototypes are nearly finished, are can it be breached, can it be climbed, and can it stop the digging?
Our aspiration is that one of these designs, or all 8 of them, may have the solution to deter or at least hamper tunneling.
Deputy Chief Patrol Agent for the San Diego sector, Roy Villarreal, says existing fencing's been breached nearly 2,000 times in the past 3 years. People who live in Tijuana are not impressed.
And they've been saying about the ladder, so it's funny. They're going to build a big ladder and they're going to jump over it. That's what I've seen in social media.
Most told me, though, people will still find a way to cross illegally despite a big new wall, Dave.
Jessica, as Texans, Floridians, and Puerto Ricans keep cleaning up from Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria, senators could today approve a $36 billion disaster aid bill. Nasty weather hit the Carolinas yesterday, knocking down tractor trailers and planes and doing damage. Fox News, fair and balanced.
I'm Jay Farner from Quicken Loans. Choosing the right mortgage lender involves much more than just a rate. Quicken Loans has earned 11 J.D. Power Awards for client satisfaction. And we invented Rocket Mortgage, a simpler, hassle-free way to get a mortgage completely online. No one else has anything like it. So choose Quicken Loans, America's #1 online lender. Call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Equal housing lender, NMLS number 3030.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, we help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT, home, safe home.
5 years ago this week, Superstorm Sandy slammed into New Jersey, causing billions in damage. To fortify our defenses, Governor Christie says we've been building up a beachfront dune system and raising thousands of homes
along the shoreline to try to make sure that if we do get another storm with significant flooding, it won't ruin these homes. It'll pass under these homes.
Coastal experts agree we're better off than we were 5 years ago, but if another storm does hit the Garden State, we could still suffer extensive damage. Warnings about Halloween candy are nothing new, but county prosecutors are adding drugs to the list of things to check for. In addition to razor blades and stick pins, a 10-year-old overdosed earlier this year after eating a drug-laced gummy bear, and edible forms of marijuana are common. Avalon is considering a ban on ice cream trucks. Town officials say when they turn around at the end of a street near the beach, they're a safety hazard. A new ordinance would also ban any peddlers or hawkers on the beach. Want to try your luck at the Mega Millions jackpot? It's going to cost you more. Cost of a ticket in New Jersey goes up to $2 at the end of the month. I'm Eric Scott. This is the Town Square News Network.
It's the Lexus Fall Collection Sales Event, and now is the time to buy a new Lexus from Lexus of Atlantic City. Drive home in a bold 2017 NX turbocharged crossover. For a limited time, get 2.9% financing for up to 72 months. Or choose a 2017 IS300 Sports Sedan with 1.9% financing. Buying a luxury car is never intimidating at Lexus of Atlantic City. It's luxury at the right price. Visit them at 3169 Fire Road in Egg Harbor Township or LexusofAtlanticCity.com.
Wind gusts of 40 or 45 miles an hour possible today. Wind advisory in effect until 1 p.m. Periods of rain expected as well. That rain could be heavy at times. The rain and wind tapers off this evening, and then we'll see partly sunny skies tomorrow. We're turning cooler, 60s for the rest of the week. I'm meteorologist Dan Zero.
Are you a victim of a crime in New Jersey, or do you know someone who is? Being a victim is difficult enough without having to search for help. The New Jersey Office of the Attorney General has made it easy to get the assistance you need and deserve. Visit njvictims.com to apply.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, it's Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Hey, thanks very much. Welcome back. It's 5 minutes past the hour, ladies and gentlemen. I am thrilled to announce that Chuck Malamut, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program for the past 26 years, is here. He has a great outline for today's program, a number of very, very significant areas that Chuck will be covering over the next 45 minutes or so. Chuck is the managing director. He leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. You can reach Chuck Malamut and his team at 609-383-2010, 609-383-2010. The following program is presented by Chuck Malamut, who is a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck and do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member SIPC. I want to say, Chuck, another day, another week, another record. As the markets opened yesterday, all were at all-time highs yet again, Chuck.
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The markets had a good day yesterday until the end and sold off. And now as we look at this morning, as we've chatted about for the last couple of weeks, we are in the throes of earnings. And for the most part, earnings are beating not only on the top line, but also on the bottom line. So, there's a lot of doomsdayers out there saying, we're waiting for 5%, waiting for 10% correction. And the market seems to defy all that. But it's like anything else, Harry. You just have to be ready and you have to be prepared because when you least expect things to happen, they typically do. So
true. You mentioned for a long time, this went on for years, where companies were hitting maybe the bottom line, but not the top line. And then we were looking and breaking down the numbers, and we could see that companies were streamlining. So they were making cuts in order to meet one of those thresholds. Of course, you cannot cut your way indefinitely to prosperity. So it would always have to be to the point where companies would again have to start hitting both bottom line and top line. And we talked about that. And it just appears that all the things that you want to see in place in an economy are conducive for making that happen right now.
Well, Harry, you're right. Now, for the most part, most companies are beating on the bottom line. A fair number are beating on the top and bottom line, and then you have an outlier that, unfortunately, misses on both sides, and that's going to happen. And that's that calls out for the case of being properly diversified
because no matter how great a roaring economy can be in a bull market, there are stocks, there are companies that just don't perform based on whether it's the industry they're in. So it's not 100% participation ever.
Yes, special circumstances, write-downs, company getting bought out, company buying another company out. I mean, there are a number of items that could drive a quarter, but I think that one quarter doesn't make the stock market, and one quarter does not make an individual company. So if you kind of look at what happened last week, I think I'm trying to get your quote. I think you're 1 out of every 4 days we hit a new high on average. That's your
okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stick with that for now.
So, I don't want to look at an individual day, but I think the futures this morning looked very strong. And then as you're seeing companies reporting, they're not only beating, but they're exceeding fairly significantly expectations. That being a few companies, and what happened last week. We remain focused on Washington. And I know that we don't like to use this 45 minutes, 50 minutes talking about politics, but the Senate did pass a budget resolution. President is set to announce who's going to be selected as the new head of the Fed. I mean, we're down. It sounds like the two, but I think, Harry, when you expect to go down Route 9, you might want to go down Shore Road, for instance, at a certain point in time. You have ongoing solid economic data that keeps coming. We talked about, we're in the throes of earnings season. The so-called reflation trade is back as higher risk financial assets are gaining ground as well. So we've had now, Harry, 6 consecutive weeks of gains. Treasury yields, rose modestly. Credit spreads declined, and industrial metals gained ground as well. So it was a good week. I mean, the S&P was up 0.9%. The Dow was up 2%. And remember, we always talk about the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We have been fixated for a lifetime. We were born and raised to understand the Dow Jones Industrial.
I'm raising my hand, Chuck. Why is that? I've just had Miss Senior America on, and we've had Miss New Jersey, second runner-up to Miss America on. Why is the Dow Jones Industrial Average the beauty pageant? It is, isn't it?
It is, Harry, and unfortunately, it really should be replaced with the S&P 500. Take a look at last week alone. Last week, the S&P was up 0.9%. 500 stocks, market capitalization weighted. So the bigger players, the Apples, the Microsofts of the world, the Exxons have a bigger percentage of that average. On a comparative basis, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 2% for the week. So year to date, the Dow Jones up over 30. The S&P's up about close to 17. But if you sort of peel back the onion and you look at last week, what drove the Dow for the most part was one stock, which was IBM. So you have to really understand, what these indices are all about. And
it's so disproportionate to reality, isn't it?
Well, Harry, I don't know if it's disproportionate to reality, but I think what it is, it's not showing the full picture. Because, if you think about, and a lot of these averages, whether it's the S&P, the Dow, the Russell, the MSCI, EFA, the emerging markets, I mean, oftentimes, as you know, stocks get taken out and stocks get put in. It's not an arbitrary decision. There's a number of firms that actually look at what makes up these averages and makes those determinations. So think about what the Dow Jones represented, 10, 15, 20 years ago and what the Dow is going to represent, 15, 20 years from now. But I think that, we've just gotten so accustomed to people saying, hey, how's the Dow doing? What happened with the Dow today? And then we oftentimes try to walk it back and say, it's not just the Dow. It's not just 30 stocks. It's really more broad-based. It's not just the S&P 500 because, that falls in what we call the large cap blend category when you look at size and style. But, you have to look at mid caps. You have to look at small caps. You have to look at internationals. And you really need to have a diversified portfolio, that's going to match to your risk tolerance and make certain that the goals that you have set out, whether it's, and you oftentimes say it as you're chatting about us, whether it's retirement or college or vacation, whatever it may be, you have to make certain that you always have your eye on the ball and you're set to meet those goals.
Chuck, before our first break, I want to give you this opportunity to tell your listeners how often should your listeners, your clients, how often should they revisit this issue of asset allocation?
Well, Harry, in what we'll call the managed account space, on our advisory platform, which is separate from the brokerage platform, where you you buy your individual stocks and bonds and make those selections, or the advisor makes them. On the advisory platform, traditionally, we do a quarterly rebalance to make certain that not only is the asset allocation correct, but within the asset allocation that you have the right sub-styles correct. Now, people might say, well, that's too often, but if it's done and it's done subtly, we don't have a particular problem with that. Oftentimes, clients have a tendency to ignore asset allocation or rebalance, I should say, and as a result of that, think about this for a second. Equities have been on a really good run for the last, several years. Bonds have not. If equities do sell off, the 60% equity portfolio that you initially had several years ago might look more like 65, 67, somewhere in that range percent. And then as a result, if the market sells off, you're more at risk at that point in time.
We're going to take our first break. It's exactly 15 minutes past the hour. We have flipped the script this week, and I'm really looking forward to experiencing the vibe of, usually it's from Kirk Conover to Chuck Malamut. Today it will be from Chuck Malamut to Kirk Conover. I think it's going to be interesting. And I appreciate Kirk's flexibility. That allowed us to interview Mayor Jack Glasser at 7:05 because he had an event at 7:30, and that allowed us to interview Miss Senior America, Carolyn Harden, and Kirk was still able to do the 9 o'clock hour today. So it was a good switch all the way around. It affected about 3 different programming aspects today. And while I'm speaking about a programming note, the Ask the Mayor, the award-winning Ask the Mayor program, we've had to move it from tomorrow night, which it's always typically on a Wednesday or a Thursday, typically in the 6 o'clock hour. But the Ducktown Civic Association Meet the Candidates event conflicts. Obviously, the mayor needs to be at that event, and he's not a twin, so he can't be at 2 events like I can be at one time. So we have moved Ask the Mayor to a special early in the morning edition this Thursday morning in the 9 o'clock hour. Mayor Don Guardian will be in studio, and it'll give the early in the morning universe the opportunity. Just like we have done with Congressman Lobiondo, we've actually, just because of his schedule, we did several special edition early in the morning Ask the Congressman. It's worked out so well, we moved it to the early in the morning program. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Ask the Mayor, but it did happen with Ask the Congressman, which will be tomorrow in the 7 o'clock hour.
Colin Bell says he cares about Atlantic County homeowners, but Bell was happy to profit off of their misery. Colin Bell worked with a crooked mortgage company that scammed innocent Atlantic County homeowners and families out of millions of dollars. The Attorney General said they sold false hope to trusting people during their darkest financial hour. It's disgraceful. But wait, it gets worse. Bell then profited from the mortgage crisis by buying up municipal tax liens against struggling homeowners who either paid Colin Bell 18% interest or lost their homes. Bell put profits before people, preying on innocent homeowners and families when they were most vulnerable. Colin Bell already scammed Atlantic County twice. Don't let Bell get away with it again. On Election Day, vote no on Colin Bell. Paid for by friends of Chris Brown for Senate.
What's your kind of fun? Is it award-winning dining and live music and frozen drinks at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville and all the above? Find your fun at Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. More at resortsac.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And now there are even more reasons to get in on all the fun with free parking 7 days a week. Grab a space in our conveniently located self-parking lot or garage for free when you visit Resorts Casino Hotel. Go to resortsac.com for more details.
Hello, this is Joseph Palillo, running for mayor of Atlantic City, November the 7th. Need your vote. Residents and taxpayers and voters of Atlantic City, vote for me. Haven't we been ripped off? What about us? We don't get tax abatements, but the city of Atlantic City always gets the short end of the stick. Sold the International Airport, a $400 million airport, for $11 million and thought they got a deal. Gave away the H-Track, received no money for a $400 million piece of property. Gave Brigada a 30% tax reduction, brought it down from $1.2 billion to $780 million. Captain Starnes got a 50% reduction in their tax, and the property next door got down 50%. But we never get a tax abatement or a tax cut. The Walk pays no property taxes whatsoever. Gets to keep all their sales tax money, doesn't have to give it to the state. Hey, what's going on here? You need a mayor that's going to look into these things and stop the ripoff. Paid for by PololoForMayor.org.
Hi, this is Stacy Lilliston. Now through October 31st, during the Jeep Celebration event, Lilliston is donating a portion of the proceeds from every vehicle sold to Susan G. Komen Central and South Jersey to help the fight against breast cancer. We're offering great deals to help hit our goals and make another big donation. Lease the all-new 2018 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 or 2018 Jeep Cherokee Limited 4x4. Take your pick. Just $199 a month. Plus, save up to $16,100 on America's longest-lasting pickups, the Ram 1500. Get a brand new vehicle and give back to a great cause. Lilliston Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram on North 2nd Street in Millville and online at Lilliston.com.
39-month lease, 10,000 miles per year, $29.95 down, plus tax, first payment, bank and doc fees. All applicable rebates with approved credit through Chrysler Capital ends 10/31.
Hey, wake up with Harry Hurley and drive home with me, Sean Hannity, 3 to 6. It's all happening here on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. Chuck Malamut is here. He's the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. To reach Chuck and to experience his concept of total asset management coupled with the all-important asset allocation, simply dial 609-383-2010. I'm going to go off script, Chuck. This is something I want you to briefly comment about, if you wouldn't mind. And certainly you always come back, particularly in December, and you talk about this. I suspect this is going to be a year where your clients and prospective clients listening right now, and everybody who invests that's listening, will have to pay very close attention to the end of this year in what they're going to do. This is you talk about this every year, and it's always so value added, but this is a big, I think, year in that respect.
Harry, great point to go off topic.
Thank you.
Mike and I have had several discussions with one being as recent as yesterday. Mutual fund companies are currently in the throes of reporting potential year-end capital gains, long-term and short-term. Now, what we are finding is, as we are reviewing client accounts, that because of the year that we've had and the last several years that we've had, typically what we like to do is offset gains and losses. You know, if you have a position in there, potentially a bond swap or a mutual fund that's not working, or whatever, or stock that hasn't worked out, you know, oftentimes you maybe sell that position, reposition the portfolio, do some tax loss selling, and maybe go back 31 days later and rebuy that position if you sold it for tax reasons. It's something that you like. I would tell you the majority of the accounts that we are looking at right now, unfortunately, Harry, and what's kind of good news, bad news, there's not a lot of available tax loss selling, because of the unrealized gains that are sitting in these accounts right now. And I mean, that's all good news, but I think what will happen is clients will be disappointed because they're going to have to pay tax on the realized gains they took this year and the capital gain distributions that were dispersed by the mutual fund companies.
So if you know what to do when you're working with, say, Chuck Malamut, for example, you know how to best legally position that client so that they don't take a hit that they don't necessarily have to take.
And look, there might be a position that just hasn't worked out, an industry, a company within industry, in a sector that hasn't worked. I mean, it will happen, but I will tell you, Harry, and so that I guess this is 32 years now we're talking about that we've been, tax loss selling and tax harvesting as we get to the end of the year, and I think this year's going to be more of a struggle for us because we're not going to be able to find those losses per se to offset gains. Good problem to have, but I think clients will. I know that what'll be the next comment will be, well, there's so you're saying there's really nothing that we can do here.
And that's not true either.
And
right?
and the comment's going to be, well, yeah, I mean, there's really very little that we can do if you have realized gains to offset that with losses. Now, I think what will happen is we're going to spend a fair amount of time to work through this with our clients, and as we get to the end of the year, maybe we will be able to find some losses. But I guess on a comparative basis, I haven't seen anything like this, Harry, where you just have accounts that you kind of go, you look at the positions and everything is positive.
Yeah, like straight line up. Chuck, I know you want to talk about tax reform, and I know you want to talk about winners and losers, and I want to push back a little bit because I don't know how we can really have that conversation yet. Because, for example, somebody brought up, oh, this is terrible. The president's tax plan limits the amount that you can contribute into your 401k. President Trump heard that bull and immediately tweeted that the 401k is such a pillar of American expectation and investment. We're not touching it. It stays as it is. So if someone said that would be a loser, no, it's not going to be a loser. Now they're talking about a fourth bracket for the highest bracket. So that, you could say, but none of it's happened yet. So I don't know who's a winner and who's a loser.
Well, Harry, I mean, so first of all, the 401k, I don't know if your listeners are aware, but last Thursday it was announced that the contribution limits will be raised by $500 to $18,500 for 401k participants.
So that's a winner.
I was looking more at,
but there actually was a flip side to that where they were talking.
Well, they were
about
talking. Yeah, they were going to roll it back. But
yeah,
I wasn't talking more about individuals in this discussion. It was more about particular industries.
But I'm still pushing back.
Because
until we know what it is,
nothing is final. Actually, so
right.
Let's take a step. Let's take a look at where we are right now. So the market. We're now in the throes of the fourth quarter, and oftentimes investors and analysts and
how do you think the first third of the fourth quarter is doing?
We're doing very well.
I know.
And for the remainder of the year, I think a fair amount of influence in the equity markets could very well be heavily weighted to what happens with the outlook, for tax reform. So we've seen some analysis, Harry, that came out at the end of the third quarter. The stock market was pricing at a 50% probability of a corporate tax cut. We believe the odds now are a little bit better than that, maybe as high as 75%. But when you have a cut in the corporate tax rate, it actually, it is an increase in profitability for most U.S. companies. Not every industry is going to be a winner. Part of tax reform is a removal of various business deductions and credits. So there might be a new tax treatment with respect to foreign-derived earnings.
Is it kind of like a reval where some do well, some stay about the same, and some actually?
And so you think about it, potential winners. If you take a look, and again, I think you said it very well, because this is still, in the writing stage. I mean, we are far from having a conclusion, if there's going to be a conclusion. And
I think we have a lot of trial balloons being sent up, which I think is very smart. Before you set policy, throw something up there. Oh, my gosh, the moment somebody said that the 401k might be reduced and that you would not be able to participate the way that people have become accustomed to, whoa, the American people pushed back, and the president immediately said, we're not changing that. You like it, we're going to keep it, we're not changing it. So I think the trial balloons are actually very good. Let me follow up with this, and we can continue with the winners and losers to whatever extent you want as well, Chuck. And I know that you have a few other areas, equity prices, tax reform, equity markets, Washington, and all that. Let me ask you this one, too. And I know that nothing is, customary or according to Hoyle or standard in the era of Trump. But usually at some point when we get close to Christmas and the rest of the new year, it's usually pretty quiet, the markets, right? Typically?
Well, as we get to the end of the year, you do have, traditionally the tax loss selling. I mean, as you get to the end of the year as well, as you get to the end, and at the end of any calendar quarter, you're in a quiet period where companies cannot, make specific announcements about how that company is performing. So, And then obviously you have the Christmas holiday. So
and then it's the next year. The reason I'm bringing this up, Chuck, we are getting very close to where this year, I don't want to say this on your show, but I'm just going to say it. This year's close to being in the bag because we're getting very close to the holiday season where nothing really, I mean, I don't want to jinx anything because some terrible event could happen, but these geopolitical events haven't affected the markets, it seems. I guess what I'm saying is I think we're really close to this year being a fantastic year that can't be stopped. And I would say this, and see how you like this one, Chuck. If they actually do deliver tax cuts, and I think they have to for their own political survival, so they're going to do it, especially after not being able to deliver on health care so far. If they deliver tax cuts in the form of tax reform and also tax cuts and simplifying the tax code and giving people more of their money and so on, I would have to believe, Chuck, the markets are going to like that very, very much.
The markets, well, Harry, remember we were talking about the markets anticipate. And
so you think it's already baked in?
I think it's baked in. I think the markets will certainly be disappointed if there is no tax reform.
So if it blows up and it doesn't happen, then what's already baked in would become an issue. There's no great upside if they do pass really meaningful tax reform that the markets would go on like a little sugar high?
Well, Harry, it's like anything else. I think there is a tendency that there'll be some euphoria, certainly, but I think what investors are continuously losing sight of is the fact that the market is truly driven by fundamentals. And if you take a look at, and again, one day, 1 week doesn't make a difference, but if you take a look at some of the earnings of the companies that came today pre-market, you will see some fairly significant gains in some of those companies because they beat expectations. So on a go-forward basis, there's the analysts and that follow these companies and individual investors and institutional investors. They say, okay, now we want to buy that stock, and as a again, anything else, supply and demand pushes the price of that equity higher.
Chuck, we're going to take our halftime break. We're at 31 minutes past the hour. For all of your financial planning needs, don't do as I say, do as I already do. Turn to Chuck Malamut, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. Chuck and his team, that's Mike and Kristen and Nancy, Chuck Malamut, the entire team, 609-383-2010. That's 609-383-2010. 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. Philadelphia Flyers, we are your home. WPG for Philadelphia Flyers action. We're going to take a brief time out. Back in a few minutes, much more with Chuck. And on a special time, first time I think ever maybe when he was a candidate or an assemblyman maybe, but Assemblyman Emeritus Kirk Conover in today's 9 o'clock hour. So he always precedes Chuck. Today he will follow.
You want Flyers hockey in South Jersey?
Wayne Simmons wins it for Philadelphia.
You got it. WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is your home for Flyers hockey all season long.
The Flyers take on the Ducks tonight at 7.
Brought to you by Coors Light. The bigger the mountain, the bigger the reward. Whatever your mountain, climb on. Flyers hockey lives here. WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
This is Harry Hurley for the Atlantic City Aquarium in historic Gardner's Basin, North New Hampshire Avenue in the world's famous playground. Here's our official spokesman for the Atlantic City Aquarium, Noah Hurley Baker. Take it away, Noah. Did you have a good time?
Yep.
What did you do?
I feeded my sharks and I touched one and then I swam right across the aquarium. And then Granddad says, "Is it right now?" And Granddad says, "Yes." It swam right across my aquarium. And then I saw all the fish in the tanks, and I saw eels and seahorses and jellyfishes and Nemo and Dory and blowout fish. And I also colored.
The Atlantic City Aquarium in historic Gardner's Basin, North New Hampshire Avenue in the world's famous playground.
Want to know why Atlantic City is in such dire financial straits? Because of guys like Atlantic County Sheriff candidate Eric Scheffler. To the rest of us, that sound means we received a text. To Scheffler, that sound meant during his time with the Atlantic City Police Department. As the ACPD training officer, Scheffler made it mandatory that he receive a text whenever a K-9 unit was deployed while he was off duty. He then charged the city 4 hours of comp time every time he answered a text. Records show that when he answered 2 texts the same day, Scheffler wouldn't be shortchanged by the taxpayers. He charged the city for 8 hours of comp time to respond twice via text. ACPD email records show that Scheffler emailed out proposals and bills related to his own private business from his ACPD email address while on duty. Atlantic County can't afford Eric Scheffler as sheriff.
Paid for by Jack Glasser for Atlantic County Sheriff.
Why have over 3 million guys switched to Harry's razors? Because at Harry's, we give you less. We make just one razor with 5 German-engineered blades. Ding! All you need for a smooth and comfortable shave. And we got rid of upcharges. By owning the factory and cutting out the middleman, we're able to sell our high-quality blades for half the price of the other guys. Ka-ching! Now we're dropping the half-price sound effects guy.
Wait, why?
Not everyone can give you high quality for a fraction of the price. Harry's. One perfect razor. None of the extra noise. As a special offer for radio listeners, get an $18 shave set with an added bonus for free when you visit harrys.com and use code 4242 at checkout. Just cover a few bucks for shipping. That's harrys.com, code 4242 for a free shave set offer. Again, it's harrys.com, code 4242. Please note, no sound effects guys were harmed in the making of this radio recording.
Vince Mazzio and John Armato aren't looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves and their special interest friends in Trenton. When Vince Mazzio had the chance to fight back against North Jersey casinos, he failed us. And when he was asked why, he couldn't explain himself. John Armato's worse. As a committee man, Armato voted to raise property taxes, and he voted to give himself a big raise twice. Mazzio and Armato, putting themselves, their friends, and the Trenton insiders first. Fortunately, there's a better choice for State Assembly. Vince Serra and Brenda Taube. They're fighting for Atlantic County, standing up for our jobs, our families, and our communities. Honest, independent leadership that puts Atlantic County first. On November 7th, vote for Vince Serra and Brenda Taube for State Assembly. Paid for by Serra for Assembly and friends of Brenda Taube.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
All right, Chuck Malamut observed me handle a point of contact that his program received. And I'll tell you how I handled it, but Chuck is the expert, and he will handle it once and for all. And the listener can glean from Chuck's answer specifics to your question. A listener called. He said, "I understand it's the tax decreases and the tax rates and all this tax reform that it's baked in to our markets." He is saying, though, but once it goes into effect for middle class America and everybody has more of their money, they're going to be spending more money at the store. They'll be spending more money at restaurants. They'll be doing this. They'll be doing that, and that things will be noticeably improved because of that. Chuck, you heard my answer to him. I said I would pose the question to you. I said these are mutually exclusive. You're speaking about financial markets. This is more, would you be going out to date night at a restaurant at Capriccio, at Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City because you have more in your net paycheck? Now, of course, I think ultimately that would improve the economy even more, and more people would be working, and more service jobs and more whatever would be created. So I want to agree with his point. I'm not sure how it relates to your world.
Well, so as we were chatting about, the potential sectors that we think will do well and those that might be, potential losers in the process. I mean, let's think about this for a second. If we're able to reduce the corporate tax rates from 35 to 20%, that's significant. So, So simple math says that profits will go up by roughly 23%. You know, the problem with logic, Harry, is, you know, that it ignores the credits and the deductions that will disappear. Some of the benefit is likely to flow through to workers, and that's what you were just chatting about, in the form of higher wages, or customers in the form of lower prices. And that, you know, that is all dependent upon the competitive dynamics in each industry. So
but
what happens is...
But how about just on the topic of, if you have a lower tax
you
effect,
will
you're going to have more money.
Yeah, and
if you spend more money,
that obviously helps the economy.
Correct. Which wouldn't it ultimately also help our financial indices, our markets?
It's going to help the markets, but I think that with anything else, and again, there's a lot of what ifs with the tax code, because it changes pretty much on a weekly basis as to where we're going, but. You know, potential winners in this process will be, you know, U.S. domestic companies. We think telecommunications, energy, and small and mid-sized industrials. What potentially could get hurt are the multinationals, utilities, energy exploration, and technology. And because you think about it, that, you know, take a look at utilities right now. Utilities, you know, they pay high corporate tax rates. Mm-hmm. But they're also regulated companies that will be required to pass the tax benefit through to customers. So think about, you know, that benefit gets passed through the customers, pretty much answers the question that you just posed to me. But ultimately what happens is, does a utility company really benefit by tax cuts? Probably not.
See, that's why I said to my friend Al, it's mutually exclusive stuff.
Yeah,
he is right about some of it.
Yeah, and I think, Harry, what happens is I think as you put a sort of disclaimer on it before we even started this discussion, that there's so much that has not. I mean, we're not finalized. You know, you're not going to know until when and if the bill gets passed, and to what magnitude. I mean, there's all kinds of discussions about high tax states. You know, New York, California, New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the phase out of certain deductions, and
they can't do it.
And then you have, you know, I mean,
Chuck, here's the good news, though, and again, it's not political to say the reality of what is. You have to be able to get 218 votes in the House. You have to be able to get 50 votes in the Senate on the same exact piece of legislation, and have one vice president willing to break the tie if you have only 50. One president willing to sign it if both houses pass it, and the president is willing to sign it. So having said that, you know, many northeastern and western, you would take California and any west area that would be disproportionately negatively affected, or the northeast and New Jersey, obviously part of that. Those senators, for example, and members of the House, they're not going to go for something that would be injurious. So they're going to have to relent on that, I think.
Yeah, Harry, I mean, this is going to – and again, it impacts a lot of taxpayers. And, I mean, you constantly hear, well, the reduction in potential reduction in tax rates are only helping the rich people. I think that's a little disingenuous when those statements are being made. And the fact of the matter is, if you take a look at New Jersey and New York, where, you know, California, you have the high tax rates, and if a lot of these itemized deductions, you know, go away, I'm not quite certain where the pickup's going to be. I mean, there's a discussion about the phase out of the AMT, and there's so much on the table right now, Harry, that I think it would be foolish of me to say
losing the mortgage interest deduction.
Right. It would be foolish of me to say, okay, you know, Harry, I can guarantee you your tax rates are going to be reduced.
That's why I said earlier we don't know who the winners and losers are at this point.
Yeah, and again, this is, you know, what I was bringing you this morning is based on the information that we currently have.
Yeah,
I think the winner is going to be
changing in one tweet.
You know, I think if you take a look, if tax reform does not happen, that's going to be a problem.
Chuck, 2-minute drill. Did you want to talk about Washington and the equity market, or did you already?
Well, I think, Harry, you know, we did to a certain degree. You know, if you look at equities. I mean, there's one camp that says, yes, equity prices are driven by tax reform, and the other camp saying, no, the current, bull market that we have talked about has been based on improving economic growth, low inflation, improving corporate earnings that we just kind of chatted about, and profits. So, additional support from a fiscal stimulus such as tax cuts would likely act as an additional positive factor. But, Harry, I don't think it's the end-all, be-all is what I was trying to say. Now, if we look at where we are with earnings, earnings per share on track to rise 8% for the quarter, pretty much slightly higher, in line with what we talked about as we got to the third quarter. 20% of the S&P companies reported as of last Friday. 20% of them come this week, to announce third quarter. Earnings are beating expectations by 4.5% and revenues by 1%. So, the long-term historical average is 4.7 and 0.3% respectively. So what I'm trying to say is not throw a lot of stats at you, but third quarter earnings are looking better than expectations.
Great.
So
wonderful.
So if you look at what is happening in Washington, I mean, we're kind of stuck in the mud. But something that has happened that has helped. The legislation agenda has obviously faltered, but think about the progress we've made with reducing regulations. And lower regulatory enforcement. You want to put something in place, we're going to remove two items here.
I love it.
So those actions that have been pretty much generally friendly for the equity markets, especially for energy and financials.
Legislative shortcomings have been offset by executive authority that's been done.
Right.
I think that's very, very self-evident. Chuck, thank you.
Harry, thanks for having me. We'll see you next week.
Look forward to it. Chuck Malamut, for all of your financial planning needs, simply dial 609-383-2010. Joining us in a few minutes will be the Assemblyman Emeritus, Kirk Conover, and he's going to get here in order to do the last 10 minutes. I don't know if Chuck wants to have a little free flow with Kirk. That'd be fun if you want. You want to stay?
I'm not so sure I'm allowed to do that, Harry.
I thought if your show was over that you could. It wouldn't be about fun. Okay, we'll say goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, Chucky. We'll be back in just a few minutes. This portion of Hurley in the Morning brought to us in part by America's Public Adjuster, the official, the exclusive public adjuster for the Hurley in the Morning program. Call Sandy Fisher, and I'm going to tell you why. Number one, they care. Number two, they're accessible. You will not get an answering machine. You will always get a live person providing you with service. At America's Public Adjuster, your care is their first priority. They're committed to advocating on behalf of you, not the insurance company. They will handle all the paperwork so that you don't have to worry about any hassles or frustrations. 609-772-0789 on the web at americaspublicadjuster.com. Please tell Sandy Fisher that I, Hurley in the Morning, sent you. Sandy will be with us in studio next on Wednesday, November 29th at 8:05, and we look forward to that. This has been neat watching Kirk arrive. He's here now while Chuck is getting ready to go, because this is all, to me, it's right. It's Groundhog Day in reverse. Chuck just said that. He's a genius. We'll be back. We're going to have a mini bonus open forum segment with the Assemblyman Emeritus next. We can take your phone calls at 609-407-1450. And Kirk will be with us until the end of today's program, which is 10:06 a.m. This 9 o'clock thing, who knows? Conover might like it more. I mean, this man's like one eye open all night during the night, waiting for the alarm to not go off. We might have invented something here today. We'll see.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Simplify Medical's clinical trial for spinal disc replacement. Visit simplifytrial.com.
While we strive to eat together as a family, in today's busy world, it doesn't always happen. Yet regular family meals are linked to higher grades in self-esteem, healthier eating habits and weight, improved social skills, and more responsible behavior. During this Eat Better, Eat Together month, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics offers these tips. Pick a mealtime that works with everyone's schedule. On busy days, serve something quick and easy so there's more time to talk. And turn off all screens, including the TV and cell phones. If you cannot eat together every evening, try to have a family meal most nights of the week. Eating dinner together is one way families can stay connected and share their daily experiences while enjoying a nutritious meal. For more tips and tools to help make eating together a priority, visit togethercounts.com.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Simplify Medical's clinical trial for spinal disc replacement. Visit simplifytrial.com.
Paul D'Amato.
Harry Hurley.
Paul, I know our listeners want to know what's new with the D'Amato Law Firm.
Things are great, Harry. We are so privileged to represent our clients whose lives have been turned upside down because they were involved in a serious accident. We meet on a regular basis. We copy our clients on all our correspondence so they always know what's going on with their case. We try to treat them like family. We have Alexa here, my daughter. I'm so happy that she's here. We have Steve Van Natten and Casey Gifford. We're a great legal team.
They're the D'Amato Law Firm for all of your personal injury legal needs. Turn to the official lead counsel to the Hurley in the Morning program for more than a quarter of a century. The D'Amato Law Firm in Egg Harbor Township, 609-926-3300. That's 609-926-3300. Tell Paul, Alexa, Sandy, the entire team that Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Do you hate your CPAP? Do you keep your family up with your loud snoring? Dr. DeFelice can help you sleep better. He cured his own sleep apnea and snoring. Visit HamiltonBraces.com to schedule your free consultation and start sleeping better because you deserve it.
Hello? Anyone there?
Hey! United Healthcare heading your way.
Thank goodness.
Lost in the giant Medicare maze?
It's so complicated.
No worries. United Healthcare has the people, tools, and plans to get you through it, including the only Medicare plans with the AARP name.
I'm so glad you found me.
Need to find a Medicare plan? Get help now at uhcmedicare.com. AARP Medicare plans from United Healthcare. United Healthcare pays royalty fees to AARP. AARP is not an insurer.
Hi, I'm Darla from Cintas.
Oh, thank goodness you're here. We have so much to do. I need fire extinguishers, right?
We'll place them for you and be out for regular inspection.
Great. And what about my new hires?
We'll get them into uniforms and keep them looking sharp.
What about this first aid cabinet?
Fully stocked.
It wasn't this morning.
It is now. And so are the restrooms.
Wow, Cintas really seems to know what we need.
You said it.
Oh, I'm ready!
Learn how Cintas can help you get ready for the workday. Visit Cintas.com.
Hey, wake up with Harry Hurley and drive home with me, Sean Hannity, 3 to 6. It's all happening here on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
We're back. It's 52 minutes past the hour, so this is a bonus 8 minutes uninterrupted with the Assemblyman Emeritus, Kirk Conover. Kirk, I've been sort of enjoying all morning the reversal here of instead of Chuck following Kirk, Kirk is following Chuck, and I'm enjoying the change of pace, I think, before it even happens fully.
Yeah, it's now
like just watching you enter while Chuck was finishing is optically just so. I mean, we've been doing this for so long. I'm so used to him walking in while you're still here. It's
right.
Just everything is upside. It's like Bizarro World.
It's like taking economics. Chuck is what they call microeconomics.
Macro.
That's the economics of the firm, and then I sort of have the macro view of the overall economy.
You know,
and
it's
talking. You know, the one caller was talking about the middle class tax cuts and how that's going to inject extra cash into the economy. And as I've said over and over, tax cuts work. Historically, they always work because that spending wouldn't occur otherwise.
You know, I was really pushing that point hard because it's one thing to look at how, you know, a company is affected because if they have to pass on things to the consumer because of some new change in the tax code. But I agree with you, and so did Dr. Al, who called me, said, Harry, I want to push back on this because that money that would be additional money that people will have
would go to work.
Was it's being spent in the marketplace as opposed to sitting in the government coffers and not necessarily spent to its highest and best use.
The velocity of money.
Government taxation slows down the velocity of money. The money goes in there, it gets sucked up into the machine, so to speak, and it stagnates a bit, and then there's no pricing mechanism to distribute government goods and services. So that therefore you don't know that money's being spent at its highest and best use, which in the marketplace, a lot of left-wing economists say, people are irrational and they're not going to spend at the highest and best use. Well, you only need like 5% market leaders and everybody else follows. And that is how you get money spent to its highest and best use. You don't have to have 100% of everybody making rational decisions.
Kirk, what I've tried to do, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, and I'm going to say it one more time so that you can comment on it now that we're here together. I say this all the time because I just believe that it requires reinforcement because too few people in the media either believe it or want to say it or have an agenda, so they won't, speak the truth on this point. And it's as follows. I said as recently as yesterday, Kirk, does anybody out there, Republican, Democrat, independent, unaffiliated alike, does anybody out there really believe it is merely a coincidence that after 8 consecutive years of either no GDP or fractional GDP, and certainly for the first time in recorded history, even during the Great Recession, we had many quarters that grew above 3%. We went a whole 2-term presidency with not one quarter at 3%. And I guess it's more of an annualized 3% GDP. But having said that, does anybody think it's an accident that the stock market has just taken off, that we've had a new record every 4 days, that we've had 3.2% GDP, that we have the highest employment in 17 years, and I could keep going on and on and on. Kirk, it is so incontrovertible to me. It's not political. It's incontrovertible that when the American people elected a new president and a new philosophy of governance, that all of this was possible because the boot of government was taken off the throat of the American citizen. Isn't that not opinion but fact?
It's historic fact. The whole essence of economic theory is that you're predicting human behavior. So it's a social science, not an exact science. But the human behavior comes in when you have people perceiving the future and they feel better. They have more confidence. So they're going to give people raises if they have a small company because they believe you got a more business-like administration, so you're going to have less regulation, less onerous new laws out of the blue, like, you can't have a 32-ounce soda, that kind of stuff.
Crazy stuff.
Yes. So you're going to have a rationalized tax code, lower taxation. It all adds up to the fact that businesses and consumers have confidence in the economic leadership that's now in the White House.
And Kirk,
policies.
Look what was required for 8 years. Quantitative easing, literally just artificially stimulating the economy because their policies were so backward and failed that they wouldn't work without just throwing money at their problems. And still, the best they could do was fractional GDP growth.
Without the Fed and printing of $3.5 trillion of money, the economy would have been absolutely zero growth.
Correct.
And that is simply because...
But what a price tag for such anemic growth, though.
Well, the damage it does, and the fact that these Democrats in Washington still think that you should raise taxes instead of lower them, you should have more regulation instead of less. They don't realize what damage 8 years of basically stagnation because you need to grow at least 2% to keep up with population growth.
Yeah, we weren't even keeping up with new
So
people coming to the country.
The damage it does, missed opportunities. You always hear you only have one life to live, right? So you got 8 years where you didn't get a pay raise, you couldn't grow your business, you didn't get an advance in your career.
And you think about that. Those are 8 years that, depending on what part of your career you're at, if you're in the beginning, I mean, you weren't getting increases. You will remember that.
You probably weren't getting a job that
Correct.
matched your skills.
Correct. So you're working for less, probably in some cases, not probably, definitely in some cases, working multiple jobs to make up what wasn't happening with the traditional one job. But it's so true, though, and I know people, believe me, and I know that you do too, Kirk, that for 8 years didn't get an increase, which means for the rest of your career, that's baked in. That would have been thousands of dollars. If you got like $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year raise, depending on what your salary is, that could be $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 that you're not making this year that you would have been making under normal behavior. And this was abnormal behavior, and it kept people down, and it did so on purpose.
104.1 FM and 1450 AM WPGG Atlantic City. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
He's hoping for more Republican unity on tax reform than he got on health care. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. But before President Trump goes to the Capitol for lunch, he's attacking one of those GOP senators he would meet with. Fox's John Decker live at the White House.
In a tweet within the past hour, the president went after Tennessee's junior senator, writing Bob Corker, who helped President Obama give us the bad Iran deal and couldn't get elected dog catcher in Tennessee, is now fighting tax cuts. White House spokeswoman Sarah